steak. Not just steak, $8 steak. Now, the issue with $8 steak is very simple. It's just that, $8 steak. Meaning you're going to have to do a great deal of work to turn it into $12 steak, which is, in my mind, the threshold for whether or not you are chewing on boot leather. And in order to do this, this will be a combination of rubbing and pounding. You will require a salt-based barbecue rub of any nature, or if you would just prefer using straight salt and pepper like some people do with burgers, that's fine too. Now, we have our cut, we have our mallet. This $7 tool can make steaks worth $12. So we're just going to start off by pounding it with the broadside. We're going to want it nice and flat. Another fun part about this is it also makes you feel like you bought a lot more steak given what you have. Now, after it's pounded out decent, the next part is we're going to be rubbing in our salt-based seasoning. Now, this is a process called salting, which along with the tenderization also makes it a little bit easier to chew. So we're just going to sprinkle it on here. You know, be reasonable, but don't be too generous. Remember, you're on a budget. We're going to rub that in. That'll fall into all the grooves you've made with your mallet. Now we're going to get the fine side and we're going to pound it out yet again. Remember, this is a relatively easy process, but it's also great whenever you're trying to, you know, if you're inviting that special someone over and you want to treat them to a good meal. But as with all things, this is going to be the kind of thing you get maybe once a month, so you might as well make the most out of it. Now, we're going to repeat the process on the other side before we slice and store. Now, one of the realities about salting you need to understand is, unless you're willing to let it sit in the fridge with the seasoning covering it for at least an hour, it's not going to achieve much. And remember, this is a cheap steak. Part of the reason you can tell that is if you look at it, the veins of fat are not evenly spaced out in the meat. There's no uniformity to it. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be a bad steak. That just means you have to put more work into it. There we go. Rub that in nice and good. Take the fine side and give it one more pounding. And remember, you're going to have to do this with every steak in the package, which is not fun, but is necessary. And you will likely also get mild complaints from the neighbors in your apartment complex because this is a loud process. Now, what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to cut it at a diagonal. This will make it so that you still have that wonderful density of having a piece of steak in your mouth, but you're also going to be able to have it break apart enough that if you put this in a burrito, you're not dragging the entire chunk out whenever you pull away. All right, you're going to want them about finger width. And you're going to want them small enough that worst case scenario, they're fork size, in case you want to throw this on a rice bowl or something. There we go. Let's see. One more cut, and that should do it. That last piece is a little bit too big. See, and once that's done, you go ahead and make sure they're fork size, and you should be just about in business. Now, the difference between this cut and something like a New York is a New York has enough natural flavor on its own. You can throw a light salting on it and throw it on a grill and it will be fine. With this, you have to put in a little bit more work to get what you want. All right, so we'll set that back in the tray, get the other ones prepped, and get our skillet heated. Remember, no oil on the skillet. There's enough fat in this already. All right, we got it hot. We got the meat we've had sitting in the fridge salting for the past hour, hour and a half. Now, the hard part. So what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to make sure as much of it is in contact with the pan as humanly possible. This is how you're going to get that sear you're after. Unfortunately, most apartments don't allow grills, so this is pretty much as close as you're going to get unless you own a flat iron. Just sprinkle it out more. And remember, you should get at minimum 5 meals out of this. This is expensive, so you're going to have to skimp on it whenever you put it in something. Well, I say expensive. It's $8 steak, but you get the point. It was on sale, and it's usually $10, and I try to limit it that whenever I buy a tray of meat, it's less than $10. All right. Those are all of our pieces. I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video to show you the cooking process. What you're going to want to do is you want to make sure that this side has that little bit of sear on it, has that little bit of brown to it. That little bit of char is what makes the magic happen. So for some people, they have to count to 100. For some people, they just watch it. Biggest thing is you're going to want to kind of shepherd it, and as the meat shrivels in size, as more moisture gets out of it, you're going to want to make sure all of those little pink parts come into contact with the skillet before the flip. Ah, yeah. Also, this is kind of a nightmare because it smells wonderful. It'll stink up your apartment pretty well. All right, now we're going to flip it over. I want to try to make sure as much of it's in contact with the skillet as possible. There we go. Like, you see what I mean? That little bit of char on the bottom. That's why we didn't add a lot of oil. And now there's enough fat there bubbling that should lock in a good amount of the flavor. Now on this side, you're going to want to count to 100 again, or just, sate yourself by trying pieces until it's done. And when that's done, you go ahead and Tupperware it up, and just like that, you have really, really good meat for a while. And remember, part of this is just figuring out what you want. Do you want it to be spicier? Do you want it just to be straight beef flavor? Everything works. This is simply showing you how to make a cheap steak somewhat edible so you can get your beef fix without breaking the bank. And remember, guys, ladies love a man that can cook. So, with that in mind, time to get this all Tupperwared up. Thank you for our time together, and I hope you enjoy this recipe. Good day to you all. And remember, good food is the only joy we'll have in this miserable life, so you better keep on trying. Good day to you all.